Welcome to the fifth episode of my podcast, STEMinist Voices. This is your host, Trisha Singh. STEMinist Voices is a podcast that empowers women in STEM. Join me to celebrate and amplify the voices of brilliant women making waves in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Let's break the barriers, shatter the stereotypes, and dive into the journeys, challenges, and triumphs, and inspire the next generation of women in STEM together. Folks, fasten your seatbelts because today we will be decoding the digital DNA of a true tech titan. From the binary blocks of Gujarat University to the algorithmic alleys of IIT Kanpur, Dr. Shah's journey is nothing less than a scientific saga. Her PhD adventure at University of California was a eureka moment, sparking a lifelong mission to outsmart cancer. Imagine a world where your computer can spot cancer faster than the speed of light. Through her company, Amaranth Medical Analytics, Dr. Shah, the CEO and co founder, is coding this imagination into reality using AI powered diagnostics. She's not just a researcher, she's a genomic genie, unlocking secrets of our cells that could revolutionize how we treat diseases. Dr. Namita Shah is a research scientist at Sung Kyung Kwan University and a visiting scientist at Samson Genome Institute, both in Seoul. Get ready to welcome the technology trailblazer Dr. Namita Shah.
Hi, Trisha. Nice to be talking to you. That was way too generous. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
My pleasure, ma'am. So, without further ado, let's dive into the questions. Ma'am, could you share the moment when you realized that you wanted to dedicate your career to cancer research and AI?
Sure. So, I guess I have still not dedicated my life to doing AI, but cancer research for sure. And so I had joined computer science or had my studies in computer science thinking I will be building making movies, building games, and all the fun stuff. And with that, I joined UC Davis. Their computer graphics program is one of the best. And during that time, one of the summers, I got to do an internship at Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. This is the time when human genome had just been published and people were really into learning about what does the whole genome mean. And so it's that time when I was trying to build tools for visualization to compare genomes of different species and identify what parts were functional and what did they do. And this got me into biology, and I was quite fascinated by it. And this one project led to another where I was trying to help them build a tool to visualize something called SNPs, which is single nucleotide polymorphism. And during that, one of the scientists, I was talking to him, and he explained how some of these very tiny changes can actually lead to cancer. And the way he
Hmm.
explained everything, I was just like really fascinated. And I was like, this is way more interesting than anything else I
Ma'am,
have
I
done.
think the
And
way you are explaining it, even I'm fascinated.
yeah, so and then just like math seems so very definitive, and biology is so like you don't know what, I mean, replicating things is much harder. And
Mhm.
so it was
Yeah,
just very interesting. And that's when I decided to kind of shift gears and move into this field. And then I went on to do my postdoc in cancer bioinformatics.
and that sounds very interesting. So, moving on to the next question. Having experienced professional life both in India and overseas, could you shed light on any contrast you have observed in terms of the work-life balance or research opportunities?
Yes. So I think it is more than country based. It is a lot more which institution you are at. At a personal level, I've had like always very favorable working conditions and very supportive colleagues and bosses and all. Uh, but I have known many friends who had to kind of give up on their careers because it was too difficult to be a scientist in the US, having very long working hours
Yeah.
and very demanding bosses. So, but as I said, I don't think it's very country specific. The main difference I see is in terms of the research opportunities, of course. So I've been in US, Korea, and India. Um, the research opportunities and the kind of research you get to do is definitely way more exciting in the US. Korea also, there is a lot of government support and amazing facilities and all for research. So it's really good. Work-life balance, as I said, it's kind of depends on where you are. In India, one of the major things I feel is the pay for research, like research scientists and all, is very, very low. And the
Right.
difference between industry and research is huge. And that is one of the challenges of doing research in India.
Yeah, I think India has a long way to go then, right, in research.
Yes, in some ways there is. I'm seeing that the representation of women in research is really good in India.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of it also, especially in the biological or life sciences, but I think a
Yeah.
lot of it also comes from the fact that they're poorly paid, and so men cannot afford to do those jobs as much.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so I really hope, but I mean it's expected. Like every country has different priorities at different times, but I do hope that changes.
Yeah,
And
even I hope that changes. That should change. So,
yes.
ma'am, as a woman of STEM, what challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them?
So I don't know in particular as a woman, I never really felt like being in, I only later realized that this was something we really need to think about in terms of that the representation of women in STEM is so limited. And it is true, like everywhere, like starting with being in IIT Kanpur, it
Yeah.
was in a class of 50, it was just three women.
Yeah.
And things haven't changed that much even now.
Right.
So it's definitely, but I have at a personal level, I have never felt out of place, or I have not felt that because I'm a woman, I'm facing certain issues. Being a woman in general, you have to deal with certain things, not necessarily STEM related issue, but just like when you have a family and children and all, you want to balance that. And I think a lot of it also comes from within than just external things, in the sense I have a very supportive family and husband and my father or father-in-law. Everybody's been very supportive of my career, but you yourself want to do things and balance um, childcare, home care, and work. So that's always, those few years are definitely a challenge. But otherwise, I have been very lucky in terms of having bosses who were just very supportive of and I had a lot of flexibility in terms of timings and how I wanted to do things.
I think that's like really great, and yeah, you are lucky. But I think the low representation of women in colleges and STEM in the STEM field even today, I think that's a very important thing that needs to be addressed. And that is the point I'm doing this podcast, just to, empower more women and young girls
Yes.
to pursue that field because it's still a male dominated field. And I think that has to change, right?
Yes, more now than ever, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with AI and all, we definitely want the women perspective and
Correct, correct, absolutely. Ma'am, how do you balance How to convince patients and doctors to use AI in cancer treatment and to reassure them about the accuracy of AI generated data?
So this is the process that we are currently going through in our
Oh,
company. We are at a stage where we have nice models and we're talking to doctors and trying to convince them to use this. And in general, I think people are quite open. Everybody is kind of aware of what is happening in this field. Even compared to like 2 years ago, things have changed, shifted quite a bit, and everybody knows that you have to kind of learn how to use AI and
yeah.
that it's a good thing. So in general, it's very positive. In terms of convincing them, I think it's the data. That's the best way to convince people. So publishing studies showing, so that's why we are conducting a study where a pathologist will do all the assessment without AI and then with AI, and then we can show how using AI you can actually improve the performance a lot more, and also kind of keeping this whole human in the loop kind of a scenario where AI just makes all the menial tasks easy and more accurate, things that human beings are limited in terms of what they can do. In terms of, let's say you want to count the number of cells in a slide, it'll be millions of cells or hundreds of thousands of cells. Like human brain does not do those things well. A computer can do that really well. Um, but there are other things which you learn with experience and certain pattern recognition and all, which humans can be great at. So when you combine the two things, you always get a much better result. And that's what some of our data shows, which we will soon be publishing, where you use AI plus human, you get really, really good results.
Has there
So,
ever, yeah, ma'am, have you ever been in a situation where like a doctor who has not used AI achieved a more accurate result than maybe like your team or your company who used AI? Something like that.
sorry, say, repeat the question again, Krishna.
Ma'am, I said, have you ever been in a situation where maybe a doctor who did not use AI was more accurate and more correct, but correct compared to you and your team who like
Mhm.
used AI?
So it's not a very specific situation, but in general, like when I'm talking about the study that we are doing, there are, so on an average, AI does better. But if you see, there will be a range of, so we have 7 pathologists in the study, right? So when you compare all 7, there are huge differences amongst them, right? So it becomes very subjective in the sense when a patient would go, which pathologist will diagnose the case will determine how well uh, the diagnosis is, right? Compared to when AI would give you repeatedly the same results. Um, so as I said, like you can definitely have a case scenario where a like there would be outlier cases where the pathologist would do much better than the AI. There will be cases where the AI would miss out on some patterns which were not part of the training data. It's something new, so
Yeah,
it has. So that's always the case. It's never like that 100% of the times this is better, but on an average, AI would tend to do better
better.
than human.
That,
And
got
as I said, like so just combining that human with AI, you can get really, really good results.
so I think AI still needs that human touch, right? You still need that
Yes,
human
at
touch
least at this point in time, definitely. It's nowhere close to just doing everything on its
by
own.
itself. Yeah, got it. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, how do you balance the technical aspects of your work with the human element of patient care?
Yeah. So when I was doing my research in US, I never thought about the financial aspects of care much. And that time, again, I mean, the technology is always moving really fast. So we had all this sequencing technology coming in. You could actually sequence the whole genome of a patient. You could generate the whole transcriptome, and there was this whole concept of something called N of one. So generally, clinical trials, you have n number of patients, right, in different arms, and you compare and contrast. This N of one was the idea that you study one patient in full detail, and then based on that information, you give that patient a specific drug. So, like a highly personalized treatment. And it made a lot of sense to do that. In fact, my mentor, he was suffering from cancer, and we were trying to study his genome and trying to understand what treatment can be given. So I was very much in believing into this, and then I actually moved to India and started to realize that none of these technologies are accessible to patients in India.
Yeah.
So even if we were to figure this out, it's not going to reach them for a very, very long time. So a lot of the gene panel test and NGS sequencing, which is available to patients in the US or in developed countries, is not really affordable for patients in India. And that was a time when I thought I should think about this very differently, um, and try and think of ways that can generate this kind of information without the cost. And that's when AI was kind of is what I was constantly thinking about. This is in like 2016 or so, where I was like, this, yeah, we have to think about this very differently. And I mean, I don't want to like the technical aspect and the cost and all, like those aspects are also very important, in the sense, even in the beginning, everything is going to be very, very expensive, and very
Correct.
few people have access to it. But eventually, something successful, there will be people will figure out ways to make it cheaper and more people will have access to it. So I'm not downplaying the benefit of doing that kind of research. But for me, I thought personally, I'm more driven to maybe figuring out things which are more cost effective and affordable uh, for patients.
Yeah, ma'am, I think that sounds very practical because I mean, in the real world, yeah, you have to see your finances, you have to see everything. So,
Right.
ma'am, if you could travel back in time to meet one female scientist from history, who would it be and what would you ask her?
So I've thought about this, and one of the scientists I think I would like to meet is Henrietta Leavitt. So she
Okay.
won't even be called like a scientist in because she was not officially a scientist. She was called like her position was called like a computer. This is in like early 1900s. So this was in the field of astronomy. So
Oh,
she so that time women were not really given good
hmm.
scientist positions. So they would just be paid really minimum wage to kind of do data records, like record keeping. So measure the brightness of the star and like keep records and things like that. So and then the official title used to be called computer. So there was this bunch of women who would be doing this, and one of them was Henrietta Leavitt, who kind of because of her um, efforts and what all she did and her insights, they were able to figure out how to measure the distance of a star from Earth, like how far and close it is. So yeah, I would like to meet her and then ask her like if the joy of doing the work um, outweighed the frustration she would have felt for not being acknowledged as a
Exactly.
scientist.
Scientist. Yeah. I mean, she found out so much important data which is still like so relevant today, and she was just given the label of a computer. That's
Yeah,
very disheartening.
yeah. Yeah, and I think the papers also written did not have her name on it. I'm not very sure, but I think
Oh
yeah.
my God. Oh my God. That's like so bad. Oh
Mm.
God.
But I
Okay.
mean, those were times. So yeah.
Ma'am, in a parallel universe, if you were not a scientist, what profession would you pursue?
I I have been fascinated by neurosurgery. So I would have loved to become a neurosurgeon scientist. Still be a scientist.
Okay, okay. I love the answer, neurosurgeon scientist. Okay. Ma'am, what advice would you give to the young girls aspiring to enter the STEM field?
I would say they should just go for it. I mean, I've thought a lot about this, like why do we have such few women in this field? And I'm not very sure. Like maybe you should also tell me what is it that makes women or girls rather not want to enter this field? Because I thought in India I could still understand. For example, when you have to take all these entrance exams and all, a lot of families would pay for sons, but very hesitant to pay for their daughters. But if you consider US, that's not really the case. Like, I don't think parents discriminate in terms of supporting their, their son or a daughter. So, but it's not that great in the US either. So, what is it that makes girls not want to take this up? Like it was never even a question for me. Like I never ever thought like as a girl should I do this or not? Like it was just so natural for me to do this. So when you what about your friends and all? Like why do you think they are less interested? Because I see even my own daughter, like she is amazing at math, but she's not attracted to this field and she doesn't
Okay,
want
ma'am.
to
So,
be.
so if I speak on behalf of, I mean, see, personally, I'm pursuing the STEM field. Okay.
Right,
So, I mean, that is one field I actually relate to. I feel it's very practical. And I feel it's going to be the next big thing, like AI, STEM. That is an ever evolving field. So, that is one reason why I'm going into the STEM field. And also, okay, there was a little parental pressure also. My parents were very clear that, that I have to take science, but I also relate to it. So it's fine. Both of us agreed. So it's fine. But regarding other girls, see, I'm not very sure because I have a few friends who are going to pursue education in US, and most of them have opted for the STEM field. But in
right,
India, I mean, I've seen like my own cousin sister. She dropped science and she took commerce because she felt that 11th 12th science is like very difficult, because the thing is in 11th and 12th I think science becomes very difficult, even if it's an international board or an Indian
right,
board. So many people just prefer to drop it. Till 10th science is fine, but 11th and 12th science becomes very difficult. So
right,
like even I'm shifting to the international board, and even I've heard that physics, HL, and is like a very difficult subject. Even in from the ICSE children and CBSE children, that's the only thing I'm hearing, that science is very difficult. I feel many people are scared to take science.
But so
It's
why are girls more scared than boys? If it's a difficult subject, boys should be equally scared, right? So I think maybe this might one of the reasons could be that girls maybe believe less in themselves for no good reason. In the sense, not that they actually have a lower aptitude, but they just think they are not good enough. Because women do, they tend to be more self-critical.
Yeah, I
And
think you're right in some way, because I mean maybe just because you don't score good in one exam, you completely drop the subject. I know a few people who they did drop science because they did not score very good maybe in the board exams in science, or
right,
in other examinations, so they just thought that they can't continue with science. But I think if you are really dedicated towards a subject and you really want to challenge yourself and work on it, then I think it's possible. It's pretty much possible, whether it's a girl, whether it's a guy. And I also feel parental pressure also comes in the way, like,
right.
na-
Maybe guys have more parental pressure to be
yeah,
in STEM
even I
than
feel that.
girls. Yeah.
Yeah, because okay, I don't know if it's very right for me to say this, but you know, um, Okay, no, I don't think I should say this, but guys like really need to have a career. Sometimes a girl can still be a homemaker, right? But a guy in most cases does not have that option to be a homemaker. I don't know if
Right.
you agree with me because it's maybe a very old thought
It
process.
could be they do have the financial responsibility. They do still feel that it's like women do it out of choice, whereas men don't have a choice.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's when most boys are maybe forced into that field, and girls still have that option, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, maybe there's a lot of different reasons, but yeah, I mean, all the girls who are interested, even a little bit, I would say definitely go for it, and it's a
Yeah,
very
exactly.
good
I mean,
place to be.
yeah. I think it's an ever-evolving field, and it will never lose its spark, right? Like it's one field where there are always going to be new things, new challenges coming up.
Right.
So, yeah. Now, what advice would you give to your younger self when you were just starting off with your career and research?
So I don't know if any new advice I have for my younger self. Like I already gave myself advice when I was really young, and I think I did kind of uh, did follow that advice in the sense my mother is a homemaker and she did sacrifice a lot to give us a good life and to maximize our chance of success in the world, and like we are all very very grateful for that. But I did see she losing herself in this process, and I always felt that I would not want to do that. Like I wouldn't want to sacrifice um, my career or my dreams for my children, kind of a thing. So, of course, you're never prepared for motherhood in that way because there is a biological
Definitely.
instinct that you can't really fight. But I did try and make sure that I always had my career, even if it was like a little bit on the back burner. I never really quit because I had twins and it was really, really difficult at that point in time. But I continued with that. So that was my one thing that I was like, I don't want to have this cycle where women keep on sacrificing and not like if
Yeah,
my
yeah,
mom sacrificed for me and then if I sacrifice for my daughter, then what's the point of this whole thing? So
yeah.
just
I
find a
think,
way.
yeah, I think most people, at least most women, struggle with that at some point. Like, I remember there was a point where even my mom sacrificed like her career for me. Uh, and even I, even I had that thought process that, I would not want to sacrifice my career for my family. I would just want to keep working, but I don't know how practical is that. Maybe when I actually like grow up and stuff,
I mean,
then
it's very important that the children are taken care of. They are the next generation. So
yeah,
it's not, it's a job that needs to be taken very, very seriously. But obviously, there should be a lot more social support for this, family support, spouse support, and all.
correct, 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 right,
And I mean, I think things are changing. Of course, we have a long ways to go, but we are making progress in the right direction.
correct, correct. I agree. All right, now it's time to switch gears and turn up the tempo because we are heading into the lightning rapid fire segment. This is where we put our guest processing power to the ultimate test with a series of quick fire questions. So, ma'am, are you ready to blaze through the questions?
Yes.
Okay. The future of healthcare in one
I
word.
get a hamper or something.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll send it an e-amper. Yes, ma'am.
uh,
So, the future of healthcare in one word.
very bright.
Early bird or night owl researcher?
Right now, neither, but night owl,
Yeah,
more of
I think
that.
even I'd prefer night owl if I was a researcher. Okay, one word to describe your academic expedition.
An adventure.
Okay, coding or writing research papers.
Coding.
Same. Even I choose that. One word to describe your research style.
Just do it.
Okay. The most relaxing activity after a long day of research.
A good movie or a TV show, watching that with
I can
and with
relate.
fun.
I can relate. Yes, ma'am. So, with this, the fifth episode of STEMinist Voices comes to an end. I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Namita Shah for taking our time to provide us with so many valuable insights. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today.
Thanks, Trisha. It was wonderful to have this conversation, and more power to the STEMinist voices.
Thank you, ma'am. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all our listeners for tuning in. If you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my podcast. Thank you.